Hello, friends. Today I will introduce you to the plot of the 2014 film called American Sniper. Subscribe to the channel and like it. Let's go. A column of U.S. troops is slowly moving through the destroyed streets of an Iraqi city. They are covered from the roof of one of the buildings by sniper Chris Kyle. Chris sees a man looking at the convoy and talking on the phone. He is given the go-ahead to eliminate, but the sniper is not sure that this is not an ordinary civilian, and the man leaves. Almost immediately, a woman with a child comes out of the door and walks towards the convoy. Chris notices that the woman is carrying something and then gives the grenade to the boy. The decision to shoot remains with the sniper, but if the guy is an ordinary civilian, then Chris will be put in jail. Next, we are shown a memory of Chris, where he and his father shoot a deer on a hunting trip. The father congratulates his son, and the satisfied shooter runs to the prey, throwing his weapon. The man tells Chris to never leave a gun on the ground. Chris attends church with his parents and younger brother Jeff. Later, Jeff is attacked by a bully. Chris sees this and beats up the brawler. The father tells his sons that there are 3 types of people in the world: sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. Sheep believe that evil does not exist. Wolves use violence to oppress the weak. Sheepdogs fight back against wolves and protect the herd. Chris is impressed. A few years later, Chris participates in the rodeo, and Jeff is rooting for his brother. Chris returns home and finds his girlfriend in bed with another man. He beats up a stranger and throws his girlfriend out. She shouts at Chris and then walks away. The brothers see news on TV about the terrorist attacks in Kenya. Chris looks at this horror and wants to do something to protect innocent citizens. A man comes to the recruiting office where they say that the best choice for him is SEALs. Chris and other recruits go through severe trials, during which most of them will be eliminated. An icy shower, constant moral humiliation, rising at any time of the day, and long hours in the mud. Chris joined the service at the age of 30. However, soon the man is taken to the sniper school. In a bar, Chris meets a girl named Taya. She says she will never marry a military man, as her sister had a similar sad experience. Taya decides to compete with Chris in the use of alcohol, but quickly loses. Chris immediately helps the girl. Later, Chris calls Taya and offers to meet her. The couple's relationship is developing rapidly. On the day of the wedding, Chris receives an order to go to Iraq. We return to the scene at the beginning of the film when a woman passes a grenade to a boy. The boy runs towards the convoy, but the sniper kills him. The woman grabs a grenade and runs to the military, but Chris manages to kill her, and the grenade explodes without harming the soldiers. When the sniper returns to the base, a colleague congratulates him on the first hit target. Chris replies that he has never felt so bad in his life. The sniper continues to cover the backs of the soldiers defending the city. Chris destroys enemy soldiers one by one. The sniper covers his own day and night. He has already hit 6 targets, which is more than all the other snipers combined. His colleagues call Chris a legend, and Al-Qaeda puts a bounty on his head. The enemies also have an excellent sniper named Mustafa. He's an Olympic shooting champion, and it's almost impossible to track him down. Chris is right at the combat post talking on the phone with his pregnant wife. Taya shocks her husband with the news that his brother Jeff was also sent to Iraq. The fighters are told that their main goal is to track down the terrorist leader al-Zarqawi, who leads 5,000 well-trained mercenaries. Chris can't watch the poorly trained infantry die below. He leaves his post and goes to the fighters. The warriors are glad to see a legend next to them. In one of the buildings, they find a family who refuses to evacuate and says that this is their home. The head of the family says that everything in the city is run by al-Zarqawi, who has a cruel assistant nicknamed the Butcher. For $100,000, the man calls the real name of the Butcher. Chris informs the base of the Butcher's name, and it turns out to be valuable information. The fighters are taking the promised money to the man. On the way, Chris calls his wife and she says that they are going to have a boy. Mustafa kills the driver. Chris drops his phone in the confusion, and his wife hears the sounds of a fight. Mustafa shoots one fighter after another, and Chris can't do anything because an enemy sniper has pinned them in a corner. The Butcher found out that the man had framed him. For this, he kills a man and his eldest son. The Butcher shouts that this will happen to anyone who speaks to the U.S. military. The Butcher and Mustafa leave quickly. The group is suspended from the operation as they did not check the area and lost a lot of fighters. Soon they are sent home. Taya is insanely glad to see her husband alive. Chris is trying to live a peaceful life. Chris's blood pressure is measured on ultrasound, and it turns out to be very high. Taya is worried about her husband, but he replies that everything is fine with him. Suddenly, the woman goes into labor. The couple rushes to the hospital, and a boy is born to them. Chris decides to return for a second tour of duty and meets his brother among the returning fighters. Jeff looks confused and devastated. He curses the horrors of war. The key goal of the group this time is to get the butcher, who, along with Al-Zarqawi, still runs the city. Chris is appointed commander of the group for his services. Co-worker Mark does not understand why Chris returned to Iraq, believing that he was addicted to war. But the sniper justifies himself and says that his goal is to protect his soldiers. Intelligence reports that the butcher may be in one of the buildings. The fighters break in, but the owner replies that he has not heard about the terrorists. The military is watching a suspicious house opposite, and the owner invites them to his festive table. The soldiers are having lunch, and Chris notices the red elbow of the owner, a characteristic feature of all snipers. The commander goes as if to the toilet, and he searches the house and finds a cache full of weapons. Chris grabs the owner and demands that he hand over the terrorists from the house opposite. The door is open to the man, and the sniper immediately kills the enemy. Then he shoots the man who came when he grabs the machine gun. The fighters clear the building, but the butcher leaves through the back door. The fight continues on the street, where Chris destroys the butcher who tried to leave. Time goes by, the sun grows up, and Chris shudders every time out of habit when he hears loud noises. At a car service, a former military man thanks Chris for saving his life in Iraq one day and invites him to the Veterans Center. A man tells Chris's son that his father is a hero. Taya gives birth to Chris's second child, a girl, in the maternity hospital. Chris sees his screaming daughter and asks the nurse to help, but she is busy with another child, and this infuriates the man. Taya accuses her husband that he spends little time with his children. The man has nothing to say in response, and he leaves. In his third term of service, Beagles boasts that he bought an engagement ring here cheaply. Then the military is attacked, but they fight back, and chasing the enemy, they run to the roof. However, this is Mustafa's ambush, and he shoots Beagles in the head. The wounded Beagles is taken to the base, and an operation is urgently performed. The Navy SEALs return and destroy several enemy soldiers, but Mark is killed in a shootout. Chris returns home, but the war is always with him now. The sniper visits Beagles in the hospital. The fighter cries when he says that his girlfriend did not leave him, despite the disfigured face. Chris promises to return to Iraq and take revenge on Mustafa. When a man announces his decision to his wife, she is hysterical. Chris silently hugs his wife. When a sniper arrives in Iraq, he is told that the enemy has been attacking them for several days in a row, and a real hell is going on around. He also learns that Beagles died in the hospital. The fighters are told that engineers are building a wall around the city to isolate Al-Qaeda, but some sniper is constantly shooting workers from afar. Chris realizes that it is Mustafa. The squad is thrown directly into the enemy's territory, where the sniper is operating. Chris and the guys take a position on the roof and wait for his eternal opponent to appear. At the same time, it calculates its approximate location. However, Mustafa is in another sniper position and shoots at a worker on the wall. Chris is changing his location. The sniper notices Mustafa 2 kilometers away from them. It's almost impossible to get in from such a distance. Besides, there are a lot of enemies around, and if shooting starts, they will give away their positions. The fighters call the capture group to the building where the enemy sniper is holed up. Despite the commander's prohibition to shoot, Chris makes a shot and kills Mustafa from a great distance. However, the enemies notice the fighters and run straight to them. The cover group needs time to get to the military. The fighters are trying to shoot back, but more and more enemies are arriving. Chris calls his wife and says he's ready to come home. A powerful dust storm covers all the soldiers, and in conditions of almost zero visibility, the fighters descend to the ground. Reinforcements arrive, and 3 fighters jump into the transport, but Chris is wounded in the leg and he falls. With the last of his strength, the sniper rises and climbs into the car. Chris refuses to continue serving and returns home. However, the man withdrew even more into himself. His kids are having fun running around, and he's still sitting and looking at the TV off. At a children's party, a dog playing knocks a child to the ground. Chris perceives this as a threat and starts beating the dog, and his wife starts screaming in horror. After the help of a psychologist, Chris finally begins to communicate normally with his children and wife. A man teaches his son to hunt and says that it is very difficult to take someone else's life. Taya is insanely glad that her husband has finally returned to the family, and Chris gently kisses his wife. Next, Chris goes to the shooting range with another former soldier to help him rehabilitate. However, Chris will never return home. He will die at the hands of his former colleague.